Hi, I'm Margie with the Asking Spot, and this week we're doing a slightly different video because, well, my baby's graduating high school.
Is that all?
Yeah, she is my younger of my two, and they're 2 years apart, and I started having kids when I was 20.
Not buying it.
You do the math. All right. At any rate, it just wouldn't allow for all the things we're doing with that. To do a regular video on a project, and algorithms being what they are, I thought, all right, maybe I'll take this advantage to show you what is my other bit of obsession.
Good call it that.
Hobby, and that's embroidery. Now, I've been doing these sort of like mini classic art miniatures. You might have seen them in some of the bloopers they've done, but I thought I'd go into a little bit more about what motivated me and how I'm doing it. So to start with, it's my first one. This one is George Seurat, Sunday Afternoon. It's a classic and I love it. Here's the original. And the thing is this has always been my favorite piece of art. I have loved this. I used to have it on a coffee mug until one of those wonderful children I mentioned earlier broke it. But
Get over it.
I have looked at this and I've had, now I'm by no means an art major or even an art historian or any of those, but my mom did when I was a kid. She taught art appreciation, so there's a little of it, but not really. But every time I looked at this picture and every time I've seen, prints of it and whatever, people are always quick to point out, oh, that piece it's about the little girl because she's the only one all in white and she's the only one facing directly the artist with no, nothing to block her view. And I always took that to be the fact. But honestly, it wasn't until I decided I'm going to try and do my mini embroidery, I realized it's not about the little girl. I think it's about this guy. I think it's about the guy smoking a pipe. And here's why. He is the only one not dressed up. He is also the most detailed. If you really look at the picture, he's got the most detail. So.
Oh, that's your opinion.
Anyway, so I did that purely because I love that piece. And then I thought, well, hey, I could do more of these. We went to the Gogh Experience, which, by the way, I highly recommend. It was really great. And one of the things we learned, though, is about, he did most of his masterpieces when he was kind of locked up in a room, and like the view for Starry, Starry Night, it came from this window. So I did what I thought had a lot more of an influence on his life was his time spent in the bedroom. So that's this piece. And then, of course, you're going to do that. You got to do another impressionist. So I did Monet. And this is the weird thing about this piece. Granted, on mine, they are not in proportion. But if you look at the real one, this is one of the cool things I like about doing this embroidery stuff is it makes you actually study the piece of art, not just, look at what attracts you. I had to look at every piece. And the one thing that I noticed is that this woman, the woman in the foreground with the child there, I'm pretty sure that's a woman of color. And I know that, yeah, she's probably, a woman of color who is also a servant, but you can't be sure. And what I really liked about her was the fact that she was dressed relatively nicely. I mean, I don't know exactly what the materials were. Obviously, it's just a painting, but she seemed to be dressed really well. So she was treated, I hope, well, if this is, I don't know. I thought that was an interesting thing that I never noticed when I saw that picture. I'd seen that painting before and it was always just about the poppies. But then when you start doing it for something like this, you start noticing other things. So after that though, I was like, well, wait a minute. I really should probably do something in honor of Salvador Dali because we live fairly close to Tampa and that's where the Dali Museum is, or a Dali Museum. And that's where I saw that he did more than surrealism. He was more than just melting clocks. But it all kind of came after he went through apparently his party stage. I did this piece. And this one I want to show you just because it's kind of a lesson on these frames. I've been going to garage sales and estate sales and thrift shops to get frames for these things because you can't buy 2x3 frames anymore. The biggest thing I've learned is when you are shopping for frames, You don't want one that slides in. That's what caused all this wrinkling. And yeah, I'm gonna find a new frame for it. You want a frame that you can just place in, none of the ones that slide in, just a heads up there. And I thought, all right, I'll do Picasso. And Picasso, by the way, if you're starting out in this and you just do Picasso, he like lends himself to doing this in embroidery. The colors are just like bang on the average colors you'll get in an embroidery kit. He also, he outlines all his pieces, so it's kind of cool and kind of easy to do his. And then that got me thinking, oh wait, that kind of reminds me of sort of like in the 60s movement, and one of my favorites is Jean-Michel. Can never say his last name right, so he's just getting one of these. And he has a bunch of pieces that are, when you first look at them, you're just like, that's just a bunch of scribble, whatever. But then when you start to study them, you're like, oh, okay, I can get some emotions from this. This is, he's a lot of confusion, a lot going on. And then when you try to do it like in a duplicate thing and you start really studying, I finally did this one. This is one I picked just because I like the color a lot. He does so much layering, so much depth, and it is really hard to duplicate his pieces or mimic them because he's got so much going on, so much layering. But I'm telling you, this is why I like doing this embroidery stuff, because yeah, the Salvador Dali Museum's down the road, but generally speaking, I'm not getting, access to these artists, and I'm just doing it online. But I'm studying it enough.
You're obsessed with
from that. I had to do, if you're going to do, Jean-Michel, you have to do his buddy, right? Andy Warhol. And check this out. This is one of the pieces. I haven't gotten it framed yet. Like I said, finding these little 2x3 frames, not that easy. Sam the cat. I started this before the Marilyn Monroe painting went up for sale and got buku bucks for that one. So I'm kind of like, ooh, I'm tapped into the universe.
That's not very impressive.
So the weird thing about that one, just a side note here, so Andy Warhol, he famously did the cans of soup and stuff, and he would do celebrities, and he did Marilyn Monroe, and he just did a bunch of them. And supposedly someone came in and was like, oh, can I shoot your pictures? And he said, sure, thinking shoot your pictures. And they shot the pictures, and they shot all but one of the Marilyn Monroes. So that's why that one went for so much money. But I digress.
A lot.
So then that one got me into going, oh, okay, well, I kind of like those silhouette one pieces things. So Toulouse-Lautrec was next. So doing that French artist made me go, oh, well, I got to do Renoir. So I did this one from Renoir. And the cool thing is when you're doing, again, with the detailed study of the pieces that I'm looking at, one of the things, normally you look, and all the pretty flowers, and I had fun doing that, but I also noticed the little girl in the background, and he does several paintings of his daughter, and so this, I'm assuming, is his daughter in the background there. But one thing I noticed that I never noticed before when I looked at that picture was that little girl is carrying something. I think she's got a bag on one side that's kind of hard to see, but definitely on this side, she has got what I believe is a pet. It's either a white cat or a white dog. I made it a puppy and put it in there. And it was just one of those things that I never would have noticed had I not, really studied it to do this kind of copycat stuff. Oh, but back to Toulouse-Lautrec. So I started looking at his, and a lot of his work, he's obviously a fan of the ladies. And he was behind the scenes for a lot of things that, and you read into his biography and stuff and you kind of go, oh yeah, he was often ignored. But that got me thinking about another one who was famous for it, and that was Degas. But his was the ballet. So he's got a lot of behind the scenes capturing of what was going on in the theater. And one of them is the ballerina in blue, or blue ballerina. Yeah, I'll do one of those.
Close.
But this is my version of that, which this is obviously very far from done, but this is kind of how I wanted to show you what I'm doing. For starters, I tape off the pieces, and that's why they're all kind of roughly the same size, but sometimes my tape varies from, which side to which side on it and how thick it is. But, since the ring's always the same size, they don't go too far different in their sizes. I take them off. I do sketches first, and I try a bunch. Like, you know, when I did Salvador Dali, I tried a bunch of them, and I really like this one, but the threads that it would need were really dark for that. This I just didn't think I would work out very well. I thought that was too plain, but that's ended up being the picture I went with. And you can see that, you know, I didn't have many problems with Picasso. That kind of rolled off. Doing all of them, and oh, like I said, you know, it was a problem getting Jean-Michel. I tried to do a couple of his, and it just didn't turn out that great. But that's basically what I do, is I do a sketch first, and then I tape off my piece, and I do usually the border, which they all vary, the borders that I do around them. And then I just sketch it out. Now, the cool thing about the proportion size of these, it's not as hard to do these as you would think, simply because I'm bringing the pictures up on my phone. Now, unfortunately, my fabric, it's not see-through, because that would make it super easy if I could just put it up there and just go ahead and sketch whatever I see on my phone directly tracing through it. But I can't do that. But their sizes are already, because it's on my phone, I can get the picture in pretty much a 2x3 format. So, you know, transferring that over to the piece, it's not that hard to do. And oh my goodness, these, you might be like, well, you probably have already turned off the video if you hated them, but if you're still watching and you're thinking, I could do better, yeah, you probably could. But it's relaxing, it's fun, and the more I'm into them, the more I'm looking at them, the more I get inspired and creative. I don't know. Well, thanks so much for watching The Asking Spot. I will be back with a regular project next week, and I'm actually working on something that's going to be an upcycled plastic, but will also hopefully be a good cell phone holder charging station, hopefully. So normally this is where the bloopers would go, but I kind of did that one straight through, so it was blooperless. But before this becomes a giant blooper, I just wanted to show you something that, you know, I often comment about how many YouTubers I watch, and I really love watching all the things I learn from, and you probably think, well, where do you find that time? One little thing I do is I speed up the YouTube videos, and I just thought I'd show you how it's done so I can save you some time too. So let's say your favorite YouTuber is Asking Spot, and it's Margie, and you're watching the video and you're like, oh yeah, but it's so long, or I don't have that much time. We'll stop that. See up here, where sometimes it's down at the bottom, it's a little gear thing, but you can change the playback speed. So that's at normal. I usually watch about 1.5.
Not once, not twice, possibly 4 times, because this.
It doesn't change it too much. And then sometimes there's these great YouTubers that, you know, they don't have to say a thing. Their work just speaks for itself. And those are the ones that I go ahead and really jump it up to 2.
Hey, it's Margie with The Asking Spot, and I'm working on this curve vine, which did not even come from my neighborhood.
And another nice thing about when you speed up the videos, everybody sounds really smart, like they have everything together because, well, you know, there's no pauses in the conversation.
You're too easily impressed.